Hey guys, thank
Hey,
you everybody for being here. I know that we have a number of people that are on the stream. Hey Steve, how's it going?
doing well. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. All the way from Wisconsin. How's it going over there?
Yeah, still over in the UK, so little rainy this week, but pretty nice otherwise.
It is raining like crazy. Actually, my neighbor's tree completely fell over. Like it's in the middle of the street right now. It's pretty wild. Yes, it is. It's raining a lot in Wisconsin here. So as we kick this off here, thanks for joining everybody. We have Michael here as well, and we're going to be going through with the ultimate guide to the UX design and Power Apps, and really exciting stuff here. And if you haven't already dived into the UX side of things, this is something that a lot of times we don't think about upfront, and it's just something that naturally happens with some of us, but others, if you haven't really delved into that side, this is going to be an awesome session that Michael's going to be able to shed some light on. So really exciting stuff here. With that, we'll do our little intro. Welcome to the Milwaukee Power Platform User Group. I know it started as the Milwaukee Power Platform User Group, and now we're really expanded. We've done a lot of work here to get us into a new space where we're bringing people in like Michael, all the way from Poland, and having a lot of fun with that. Here's a little bit about the agenda. So we'll do quick introductions really quick here. Beyond that, we'll let Michael take the reins and do the presentation. And then after that, we'll make sure that there's some time for questions and maybe some chit chat at the end if there's some time. Otherwise, don't forget to follow us on the Milwaukee Power Platform User Group out there on LinkedIn. That's where we post all of our events. That's where we have all of our upkeep. And if you guys want to follow that would be great. So with that, let's go dive into a little bit of the introductions. So a little bit about myself. The Milwaukee Power Platform, we started this back in February, and we've had a ton of success with this. And now that we're, I think I don't even know what number we're at. We're beyond, I think now, I don't know, 30 or 20 at least at this point. But it's been going really, really well, bringing a lot of great people like Michael and the number of other presenters that have been here already. Really exciting stuff. I'm also on the SharePoint user group board for Wisconsin as well. Very similar thing there, but more on the productivity side and less of the Power Platform. And I'm a technical architect, so I have a lot of fun in the Power Platform space regularly. And if you see my Twitter, that's one spot where I like to either talk about the things that I'm either challenged with or just getting through on a daily basis. Beyond that, I've been in technology for some time, and although we haven't been able to travel lately, meeting people like Steve and Mike and being able to get through my traveling experiences just through this user group even has been great. So thank you guys for joining us. And my LinkedIn and my website are there as well. And Steve?
Hey, yeah, I'm Steve Campbell. So I co-run this with Anthony here. We've been doing this together for quite a while now. I'm a capability lead, so I lead the Power BI team at Cognizant Microsoft Business Group. I'm a data platform MVP, more specifically in the Power BI side. So I definitely look at the Power BI side. We also have another user group on Power BI tips, focused more on the Power BI. But really, I like to come in this one and we look how Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate interact with each other, really looking at the Power Platform, how they work together. Really excited for this presentation. I know it's Power Apps focused, but obviously a lot of concepts can apply across multiple things, not just Power Apps, Power BI, that sort of stuff. So interesting to hear the key concepts, how it ties into Power Apps, and how it's tied into business value and creating ROI. So really looking forward to this one.
Thank you, Steve. And Michael, you want to do your introduction?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. So I'm Michael Guzowski, and I'm MVP from Business Application topic for the second time. And of course, I'm from Poland, and today we've got pretty sunny day, so no rain, no rain. And I'm in IT since 2012. I was a programmer, then I was a team leader, architect, and now I'm very much focused on Power Platform world and business application development. And I'm also supporting customers from the business perspective, business side, rather than just purely technical. So, and I'm also very focused on building community in Poland, in CE. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think just speaking to your background here, that you see the number of different things that you've been a part of. This is why this session is going to be so awesome. Is that you bring a lot of these different things to us that we haven't experienced. So we're really looking to learn through your experiences here. And I know that you have had a lot of fun with this presentation in the past. So I appreciate you spending time with us today and being able to run through this again.
Right.
So with that, then we'll allow you then to take the screen, and we'll get that transferred over and have you do your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So one more time, hello everyone. That's me. As I already said, I'm on multiple different social media. Just if you have any kind of questions now or later, don't hesitate to drop me a message or email or whatever. I'm currently working for two companies that both I'm CEO and co-founder. Both are focused on Power Platform and Microsoft technology stack. One of them is mainly focused on Poland. This is Akademia Aplikacji, which is a training company that is making online courses. Another one is Developico, that is basically focused on implementation, support, and that stuff. Some of customers I was working for, there was actually all kind of industries, big, small companies, all kind of. But going into the main topic, I know that I know that the UX part regarding power apps, you may be expecting that there will be a lot of power apps references, and there will be, of course, there will be some samples. But in general, have in mind that the UX rules, principles I will share with you now today, they are pretty technology agnostic. You can use it not even in Power Apps, but also if you're like a pro developer, you can still take your keys from that. Okay, so let me just start from the short little story. The fictional character, Alex Wilbur, maybe some of you who are working with basically Microsoft technologies, you already know it because it's also a very popular demo username. But nevertheless, Alex Wilbur, he's a fictional technical consultant, and every day he's traveling to his office. He's driving under this sign that says no, just like that. Then he's entering some coffee shop to buy a coffee. He enters the room, grab a coffee, and quickly go into the office building. He entered the elevator room, take the elevator, press the proper, select the proper floor, and then just before he goes to his desk, he need to visit toilet. And I can see your smile there, and I must say it's one of my favorite photos, because I was also always wondering what should you do if, for instance, both sides will be occupied. Like, should you take a look or something, or maybe make some challenge? Yeah. So anyway, just after this quick toilet refreshment, he goes to his desk, and he need to get into this mood to start working. So every time he find some nice song he want to select, like it, so it will be safe for later on. But he need to be careful not to select the thumb down button by accident. But that's even not that bad, because he may always by accident turn off the computer if he wants to volume up the cool music. But still, that's not the worst case, because, well, the alternative is that he can use one of his mates' cool software to volume up. Of course, that story doesn't make sense if I won't explain you why actually I share it with you. So this story in very nice way shows the main user experience sins that I think all of us made at least once at a time. We used to just make some wrong assumptions and create a screen or a whole application that has a lack of context in the controls, or misleading information, or unclear design. That's the very popular one. Information overload is also a very common mistake. And no test with end users. Another very often problem is that we are inconsistent between different apps, even in the same company. And increased error prone or just a bad idea are also our popular sins. And before I'll share with you some tips that you can use, or principles that you can follow to create better apps, better designs. You may think, okay, Michael, but well, does it really matter? I mean, okay, design, let's say it's useful, but from the business perspective, the people who are, business doesn't care if you're using this or that technology. They just focus on the results. So does it really make sense to focus on the design in the first place? So in 2018, McKinsey published a report where they tracked the design practices of 300 publicly listed companies over some I think it was 5-year period between 2012 and 2017 in the multiple countries, and of course over multiple industries. And they interviewed senior business leaders and design leaders. They collected more than 2 million pieces of financial data and recorded more than 100,000 design actions. And the results was that they formed 3 key findings. First of all, there is a strong correlation between high McKinsey Design Index scores and superior business performance. Second of all, the results held true in all industries they verified, and also the TRS, the total return to shareholders, and revenue differences between the fourth, third, and second quarters were marginal. So as you can see, the better the UX is, the higher the return of investment is. Let's leave the analytical data for a second and just try to think, using our assumptions, or even just, we can try to figure out why is that happening? Why is it like that? After the better UX, the better business performance comes. So I think, and that's my theory. I don't have any research with that, but my theory is that, well, if your users will be easier, will use your applications with easier manner, there will be also easier tend to change, swap from old technologies, old solutions, old softwares, old apps to the newer one. And as all we know, changing habits is one of the most difficult part in all kind of IT projects, because many people in the adoption phase just fails to switch to the new tool. So yeah, I think that that's the one of the main reasons.
Hey, Michael. Hey, one thing, and I think one thing that kind of goes through my mind is a lot of times when we feel that adoption isn't there, we think it's the process, we think it's the technology, or we think it's it's something that's broken. Here, kind of what I'm seeing in this graph, and what I heard you say a little bit was along the lines of that if you were to engage in more UX up front, we can almost get past some of that a little bit better and see some more adoption, some organic adoption that happens based on them understanding the process a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And also we need to remember that since we are working with low code, no code platforms, low code, no code tools,
right?
We are very hardly working with new challenges, like for instance some problems with the implementation of new stuff, because IT, well, from my perspective at least, I don't know how about you, but from my perspective, IT branches, IT departments doesn't like low code and no code, for many reasons, of course. But from the business perspective, this is the tools we should use. This is the tools that brings the business results in the most, in the quickest form, in the quickest way. And we need to, as consultants, we need to remember that, well, the IT projects are not about IT stuff that should be used, but rather about the business that should, with the IT stuff, with the
Right.
IT solutions, deliver more opportunities, deliver money, become more competitive on the market. And so that's why it's so important to, being, even though you're super C# developer, you need to be open for, you have to have open-minded for new technologies, new platforms, as no code and low code, and being compatible with the new approaches. So one great slide about that is that there was a report made by Gartner that says that 70% of new application developed by enterprises will use local or no code. So I think that's super important to be aware of that perspective that we are heading to. And that's the cool chance, great opportunity for all kind of people that are outside the IT world, that are super aware of the business process in the organizations, that can now be part of this whole IT project process. They can now deliver the projects because they are aware of what need to be done, and now they have tools to know how to done it. And one of these things is the UX, because now I remember the times where there was a hard split between back end developers and front end developers. Then they merged a bit, so there was a full stack developer. And I think we, as local developers, as citizen developers, we should be kind of a full stacks. So like we should be aware of how to create these IT solutions, and also with the respect of how the users would like to get into interaction with our solutions. And when it comes to the interaction, our goals should be to make our design simple, ordered, and intuitive. And just for a second, if you think why actually those are the most important principles, I would refer to Abraham Maslow pyramid of needs. I hope that everyone knows who the guy was and what he invented, or rather formed, because he, obviously he didn't invent this needs. He just, formed the rules. But nevertheless, all of these three, like simple, order, and intuitive design, are related to safety principles. So almost the second from the bottom, always the very fundamental one. Because when something is simple, it means that you can understand it. It's not above your competencies. You feel confident using it. Second, if the design is ordered, you can see that it's less chaotic. So you know what to expect if you start to play with it. So, and you feel like having control over the thing. And last, the intuitiveness is related to, if you just for a second think what intuitive design is. So intuitive design is something that you already have seen. There is no possibility that the design will be intuitive if you see it for the first time and all the concept used will be for the first time. So intuitive design has to, take some key findings from the past experience. And when it comes to the simple design, how we can actually use this rule to build better designs, better apps. First of all, you can build the context for the user. So always remember that when your user will open the app, you can set his expectations properly by, for instance, a nice name that will be enoughly descriptive and some icon identification. Because imagine that, for instance, we'll do something opposite, like you'll open the app and see something like this. It says nothing to you, like, okay, you don't know what to expect. In the previous example, you can definitely say what you are going to see. Next thing is that you should remember that sometimes your users may be distracted by anything. So they may need to put down the phone, or I don't know, lock the screen from the laptop, and they can walk away and then get back in 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes. And with at first glance on the screen, they should be able to see what they're looking at. So if you're looking at this screen, you can easily say what you're looking at. So this is the messages screen, right? The bold title is descriptive enough. But if you're looking at this example, well, of course, everyone who is using iPhone knows that this is recent calls. But imagine that someone was using Android before, or Windows Phone, or anything else.
Hey, Michael. Speaking of that too, and actually, I despise like this entire screen on my phone, because I'm now in an iPhone and I came from Android. I've had an iPhone now for many years, but still, I can't get over this screen. It's just one of those things that I just get stuck on every time. I'm opening something and I see like, okay, so it's great that it shows like my Teams calls in there and everything to it. It pulls everything together. That's great. But it doesn't always make it easier when you're working through the screen. I don't know why I get stuck on the screen just about every time I open it. And then the fact that on top it says all in mist, it just, to me, it's one of those screens that will, I don't know if I will ever be able to untie this in my brain, to be honest.
Same here. It was life experience. That's why I put this example here.
Yes, that's awesome.
But yeah, these examples are one of the many. Another example is that, for instance, if you're building an app where you need to put some description near the control, you may, for instance, try to do something like this. So at the very beginning, you put this description, very long one, and just before you'll be able to focus on the control and think what you need to choose, what are the options, you need to read all these 3 lines long description. But what if I'll put, very subtle heading on the very top? You'll immediately know that, okay, you need to select or choose between price or quality. And then just by, some first few words, you will be already, you'll tend to assume what is what you will need to choose from. But you may also improve this screen by merging the title with the control. So now the control became a title itself, and also it shows you what are the options. We can also move the description a little bit to the right. And now it, first of all, took much less space, and also user knows on which parts of the area he or she will need to focus. So first of all, the bigger font is much more eye attracting. So he will focus on this part, and then he will grab the full context by reading the description. Another example is you can gray out a little bit the description and add some icons or two to just quickly show the user your intentions regarding this group of controls.
Hey, Michael, before we go too far, I did have a question.
Yeah.
So with this, I mean, it's awesome. I really like the way that you flip the toggle. I've actually never done that, and that's really cool. I'll have to use that in the future. So is that something that you've implemented in a Power App out there?
Yeah, I've got you'll see examples later on.
Cool. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, I prepared some real time examples. I mean, from my projects that I've done for customers, and there are some examples like that.
Awesome. And then on top of that, I know that I have had my fair share of struggles with toggles. Like when you're configuring them, they're very customizable. You can do so much with them. They become this like nightmare at some point once you like customize it so much. I've just gone down this path so many times with the toggles. They work really great when they're simple, and then you can customize them and get really deep into it. It's one of those things that like once you just get really deep and you have it like, if this toggle is flipped and that one's not flipped or whatever the case is, your logic gets pretty long there.
Yeah, that's another part of the story. I mean, how to keep your code clean. I mean, that you need to, for instance, keep centralized definition of variables and some other ifs. And so yeah, but that's not part of my presentation. But yeah, definitely, it's like we can discuss it over the next hour or so. And definitely the toggle button is also a very, very funny one, because for instance, there was times where you can build a components, but there was a problem with passing proper arguments to the component, and you could make some tricks using toggles. I wrote a whole article about it, so if you're curious what I'm talking about, you can find it out easily on web.
Is that out on your website, or is it on Twitter?
On website, on my website.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
But getting back to the topic,
yes.
Another part regarding simple design is to use the space wisely. So if you see the screen like that, you may and should actually expect that something will appear below. And of course you'll be right, because there'll be duplicate question like this. But if I put the question centralized, then probably you won't expect any other question above or below, because subconsciously you will just put the proper measurements and that will be obvious that, okay, there is no space enough for this stuff. Some small example from one of my very first apps. There was apps to schedule, postpone social media posts, and that was one of my very first designs. And even though that the app maker was me, and even though that I was the only one who was using the app, after a month or two of using it, I forgot actually what the post click intention text box was. So I totally, every time I was using, I need to focus for a second to what should I pass to the post link text box. And then I used this hint text parameter to just put the proper placeholder. And what I recommend is to really use regular language. So nothing formal, nothing very formal, just regular question and link to external resource in the case of this post link text box, right? So just to being helpful to the user. Another use of space is in this example. So the sentence surrounded by white space is a case in point. So this is another way how to play with space, actually. Next example is also, I think it's very common to, as IT developers, as a technical people, engineers, we tend to just group all important information together, and we don't really make effort to think if for the user that will be pleasable to read it. And on the right side, well, you use a little bit more space, but through the grouping of information and through this air, you can much more easily read all the information together. But I think that the most important part of my session, the most interesting one, is this related to order design. And I hope that not many of you knows what is gestalt principles. So gestalt principles is a set of psychological principles that determine how people naturally perceive information and unconsciously attach extra meaning. And there are actually 7 or 8 principles, but I'll talk about only 5 of those. So first principle, the proximity rule, says that elements which are close together seem to be a group, and we have tendency to connect those information together. So if you see the screen, you probably, at the first glance, will identify 4 rows of information. But if I put these rows like this, you immediately know that, okay, there are only 2 rows of information, even though like the information that the screen holds didn't change at all. But just by grouping them, you instantly get another extra information. So like, okay, there are only 2 rows of information.
Wow, what a big difference for something so small.
Exactly. So the proximity principle says that elements which are close together seem to be a group, and we have tendency to connect those information together. Next principle is a similarity, and this principle says that elements which look similar seem to be a group, and we can refer to the old saying that says if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. And in this example, you probably identify one button, but actually there are 2 of them, but they are totally different. But if I'll put it like this, you immediately can at least assume that, okay, these 2 controls are doing some action. Another example of this principle is here. So this control below that says sign up is of course a button that is an action control, but this label above, actually it doesn't look like a label at the first glance. So you may make impression to the user that he or she can click on it. So if it's labeled, you should definitely put much lower attention on it. Oops. So similarity rule, one more time, says that things that looks similar seem to be a group. Then there is a third principle, continuity. And if you look on the left side, I mean on this navigation pane, you immediately knows what it's all about. So I won't change any information. I'll just change the order, and immediately your information that you get from looking at screen will be different. So the proximity, the continuity rule says that elements which are ordered in a line or a curve seem to be connected. And example of it you may observe on Power Apps builder. I mean, this editor, this admin panel, whatever. So first of all, there are a lot of information, and here you can see one navigation, here another navigation, and here are the third group of information. And just by ordering them in line, you know that their like reaction on click should be very similar. So this is what continuity principle says. Next principle is the closure, and it says that elements which are creating closed figures seem to be grouped. So this is exactly why you may identify this group of information as apps, because on the left top corner of this white section, you may easily draw invisible rectangle around these information. So that's why you identify these labels as part of this apps label, this apps title. Another example you may see here. So how do you know that there are 4 rows and each of them has 4 different information, rather than, for instance, I don't know, 3 columns? Just because this red arrow is placed on the plan of invisible long rectangle, right? And in Power Apps, yeah.
I was gonna say, I like your use there of the invisible rectangles, because it is really, I mean, there's these layers that you see out there, and what you're saying here is, and taking advantage of, is the white space, or the black space in this case, where it makes a big difference on how you kind of leverage those different spaces, which to somebody that doesn't, I don't think about that very often, but it does make a big difference to when somebody's kind of pointing their eyes in a certain direction.
Exactly. When I was reading about these principles for the first time, I was like totally surprised how from on the other hand, it was totally obvious. But on the other hand, once I was really aware of those principles, I saw a lot of opportunities to improve my designs.
That's a really good word to say. I think a lot of opportunity to improve your designs. That could be a T-shirt or something. I think that'd be awesome. Steve, actually, speaking of which, Campbell, what do you, as far as using white space in Power BI, do you guys use that often in Power BI as well?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the same rules apply here. I mean, these principles equally to Power BI as Power Apps. I mean, everything that we're using, we're clicking on, needs these principles. something I really like doing actually when I learned about these, trying to improve my knowledge and see how they're used, is going to apps or reports from really great companies who have really well usable designs. Pick these out and see if you can spot them in real life examples. Really gives you that eye, I think, to kind of see how they use, see how the experts are doing it.
Yep.
Improve yourself, and then you can kind of relate that and learn from that. So yeah, really, really useful in anything you're presenting to a customer, to a user, anyone like that.
Thank you. On the other hand, in Power BI, I don't think you have what we have in Power Apps. So these support lines. Is that correct?
I mean, there's a lot in Power BI. You can have grid lines and stuff like that. We can make backgrounds. Power BI Tips has a lot of backgrounds available there as well. So there is, I think they are definitely putting a lot of emphasis on the canvas with grid lines and stuff like that. So the teams are definitely working to get that same direction. Obviously, Power Apps is a bit more interactivity and a bit different use. So there's some difference in building, but I think the visual elements of these, they have the snap to grid and stuff now.
I was just going to ask, the whole snap to grid,
Yeah.
you can start to see some of those kind of come together. It gives you like this space, like when you are creating the white space, or you are creating, let's say, a button here, you can size it up a little bit easier because of the snap to grid. And with that, I mean, there's UX people on the back end that are saying, I think we can help users a little bit this way by making it snap to grid, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Fully agree.
Michael, you've covered so much. Like, this is like, I've got to say, this content is like some of my favorite. Some of these thoughts that I've had, like, or when I'm building apps, or when I'm building whatever it is in front of me, PowerPoints, things like that. It's some of these things that I've never really like put into words that you've really shown here today with examples. It's been awesome.
Glad to hear that. And wait just a second until you see the final ultimate example, because
Awesome.
The point here is not to focus on these rules separately, but rather to have all of them in mind when you're creating your design. So I'll just quickly walk through the last principle, the connection one. So from the eye point of view, like how do you know which tab in browser is selected? So basically, it's just a matter of a background color of the tab. And this is what connection principle says. Elements which are visibly connected seem to be grouped. And well, there is another example of it. So these three bubbles seem to be connected just through this dark line. And the key here, as I said, is to like create a design that take use of all of these principles at once. So I think this example is very cool because, for instance, as you see this plus button, how do you know that it doesn't add a navigation button on the below? This is because, well, it's put on this, it's surrounded with this, circle border that is the same color as a background for these folders. So this is the, I think all of these rules are very simple and intuitive, but on the other hand, using and remember about all of them at once, this is the hard part. And we as a citizen developers, not super pro coders, super pro devs, we should be, put much more effort on it. And last but not least, the intuitiveness of our apps is also crucial. And one of, I think, great tip that is super, super simple and gives you a lot of benefits to your apps is to follow the patterns of organizations. So for instance, if I'm doing an application for Caritas, let's say, or any other company, The first thing I'm doing, I'm opening their web page and see what kind of colors they're using in the headlines, what the colors they are using in navigations, in buttons, how the buttons behave. I just, try to not reinvent the wheel, but rather just, copy the behavior that probably they paid some company a lot of money to design this. So, well, we can say I'm stealing the job, but actually I'm just follow the pattern. Here are another example of how to follow patterns that are very well recognized on the whole business market, and all kind of apps are actually following these. So for instance, if you want to bring attention of a user to some specific place, you need to put a proper boldness, put a proper color, because colors are bringing attention, etc. So yeah, that's another tips for you. Another thing that very often we used to forget, I think, is to always leave proper feedback for your users. So the very first example of it you can see when you're opening an editor. I mean, Power Apps editor, there is this busy indicator, and you should also implement such in your apps, in your solutions, because, well, I think there is nothing more frustrated than when you're clicking and then nothing happens. I mean, you don't know if you clicked properly, I don't know. I mean, is there something like proper clicking? You click and nothing happens. There's nothing much more frustrated than that. So busy indicator, or at least graying out the button that user clicked. That's the simplest implementation of giving feedback to user that, okay, we capture your activity, your action, and now we are doing something. In Power Apps, you can also use some very simple animations. So this is actually one screen, one Power App screen, and when user click an arrow, there is a very simple animation that moves this title to the left, then appears some extra information. And this is only because to not, surprise user that once he clicked the arrow, total different design appears. And there's also a bonus part, the productiveness of your apps. It's it's not super important, but once you implement this simple order into rules, principles, then productiveness of your app is also something that may improve your designs. So first of all, you need to remember that people tend to scan before they read. So I think all of you agree that when you're looking at the article, up screen, movie, you at the beginning you scan the what you're looking at, and then you're reading details. So you should also follow this in your apps. So for instance, put a darker color, or actually any color. Gray is not a color; it's rather a lack of color hue. So you can put a darker color and maybe some bold to the titles, to the icons. You can also play with different colors like red. Red is, I think, the most eye-catching color. Then there is because it's referring to danger. The yellow or blue are, let's say, warning colors or just the notification colors, and the green one are the most relaxing ones. So when you see something on green background, then probably it's something good. So you don't need to focus on it at first glance if you're in a rush, for instance. Another tip is to use extra screen instead of scrollable screen, because if you've got like 20 fields to fill out for a user. Then scrolling, if you want to, for instance, see 10 fields per screen, scrolling requires more screen touches than just pressing one button that will immediately show you all the information on the screen properly set up. So yeah. Oops. And also, you may remember that your users doesn't always need super flexibility. Sometimes you as a designer may decide for them that, hey, instead of like having super flexibility on selecting proper hour, you may just pick one of these 4 options. Of course, you can always add some extra button like advanced peak or something like that, but to simplify the interaction with the user, you may just start with that instead of this one, because in this one, every time when you would like to change the hour, you'll need to select the text box, then delete the time, and then put the hour you want to pick. So it's not very comfortable. And just quick examples of how the designs have changed in my cases. So there was another one of my very first apps that I was making for a customer of mine, and this is the application for stock taking. And as you can see on the screen, we put at the very first version, we put all the information that were that should be displayed for user in this white space, white area. But then we ask the user what are the most important information for them, just to not overfill this white space with unused information. So the next version actually brings some information in the, let's say, this red context place, with red context area, and leave some of those in the white space. And then we actually have 2 main conclusions. First of all, that every time users walk through the warehouse to stock take the items, they first put attention on this serial number. So this information should be centralized in this whole area. Second important conclusion was that every time they drag this gallery, they need to read this whole status name. It says yes na stanie, which means it's on place, and there's another status option that says it's missing. So, well, if we just change it to buttons, then we immediately can, by the first glance, says that, okay, if it's on place or it's missing or it was moved. First of all, because these radio button section, through the positioning, it already told you this information. Second of all, through the icons, and third, it also have these small labels just in case something wasn't descriptive enough. And as I said, the serial number was centralized, and other informations were grouped properly. So like dates were moved to the dates group section. Identification information and description information were grouped as well. And the last thing to improve was to follow the similarity principle. So this button here and this control and this control were buttons, so we need to make them very similar and also place them in proper place on the screen. And last example is, as I said previously, this is my very first app to publish posts on different social medias, and this is how the screens changes. So first of all, I simplified the designs, and second of all, I add these extra labels to just, give an extra description on these sections, on the whole sections. And as you can see, I aligned them properly. So I aligned, following this continuity rule, the labels of sections and the elements inside the section. And well, that will be it. So here is the all the summary, all the user experience things, all the user experience remedies. But I know that there are like 12 rules to remember. So I know that maybe not. It's not a great list to remember. So if I'd like to leave you with only one thing you should remember, only one thing, that will be empathy. The emotional intelligence you should, like bring to work. You should, when you're working with your customers, try to feel like you are wearing their shoes. Try to make no assumptions except one, that your users know nothing about your app, and you have to tell them what they're looking at and what they can do through your user experience. And by that, you improve significantly the adoption part of your IT project, and through that, your business will be much more happier. So that's it. If there are anything you'd like to know more, there are cool books I recommend. All of this information, I didn't invent it. I didn't invent because I'm not that smart. I just read some books, and bring all of these information in one presentation, and suddenly everyone thinks that I'm super smart. But no, that's not true. I'm like just reading and copying information. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's it.
You absolutely crushed it. That was really exciting. The number of examples, I think, is really what I think is so eye-catching, that you were able to bring together the story and the examples, but then keeping it simple too, following your own principles during the slides. So that really helped. So thank you so much for that.
I love the bit of advice as well. Don't reinvent the wheel. As you say, there's a lot of people who have done this, a lot of companies who have paid a lot of money, and they probably copied others. As you said earlier, intuitiveness, I think that really, really stuck out to me. Is your user probably has similar apps that do other stuff. Let's follow those designs. There's a reason Twitter, Facebook, all these apps, they have the things at the bottom and everything in the same place. So I think that really struck out for me, just looking at those good ones and not trying to be too smart for your own good, and using those principles correctly.
Yeah, the intention behind this presentation was not really, to make it public. It was at the beginning, it was only internal for my company, internal presentation, because I saw that these citizen developers and even Procode developers, they were not aware of these like fundamental rules that every UX designers or UI designers knows. So I was just trying to share some basics with them, and then I showed that on one or another meetup, local group meetings, and then I'm here.
That's awesome, and we appreciate you digging into that and sharing all that information with us. With that, thank you so much again for presenting. Anybody that has questions, his screen there and his Twitter handle, feel free to follow him there. Really exciting stuff. Thank you so much, Michael, all the way from Poland. It's great to have you and speaking in English. I know it's not your first language. You did an amazing job. This was an awesome opportunity for us.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Really quickly, if I can get, I'll share my screen here with the upcoming events. I will have just a couple things that are coming up with the Power Platform user group. So in 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, we are going to have just one more event this month, and that's going to be Amber. She's going to be sharing her experiences with the Power Platform. That's going to be really exciting. Beyond that, we also have Ashley Steiner. She's also out of the Wisconsin space, heavy in dynamics, and she's a hot dish podcast contributor. So very exciting. It's going to be a great presentation. Nate Chamberlain, an MVP out of actually the product space. So this is going to be more the productivity area. He's going to be speaking on Power BI and Microsoft Lists, so that'll be awesome. Beyond that, we have Matt Fleming out of Minnesota, a principal solution architect, ton of experience. And again, he's going to be speaking on Dataverse and more the back-end dynamic side of things. So really exciting stuff that's coming up. And without leaving the screen here, I want to make sure that I mentioned the major version release of the Power BI version control. Really exciting stuff. Steve and I had spent a lot of time making sure that this came out just last week. So the next latest version of our Power BI version control app is out there in the wild. It's on powerbi.tips. We'll certainly have a link there in the description for this, but something that's really exciting. If you are doing version control with your Power BI reports, this is a must-have tool. And with that, thank you so much for the time here today. Thank you, Michael, again. Thank you, Steve. And thank you, Mike, on the back end for really making all this happen. What a great experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. That was fun.